coming to have Coach Achuff on the show. We got to talk last night. We got to have a little fireside chat, which I always appreciate those, and now we get to have one with you. Coach, how we doing today?
Oh man, I'm doing really, really well. It's tell you what, it's sunny down here. I'm not worried about the temperature because you guys back in New York. It's going to be a nice and warm 70 degrees here today, so I'm doing well.
Yeah, it must be nice to be down in Alabama where it's spring already and, life is good. It's never not spring in a way, kind of. So, I'm happy you got 70. I will tell you this, in covering the college football playoff national championship, I left January 20th and it was 70 degrees in Miami. I landed in Syracuse, I think at like midnight or something, and it was negative 12. So I had an 82-degree shift that I'm sure you don't miss.
Yeah, no, I don't miss that at all. The Now I will tell you this: like they had the Senior Bowl down here last week, and it was in the 20s. It was
Yeah.
cold, and they kept talking about how cold it is down here, and I'm like, it's not that cold. I mean, I can be back in New York with the wind chill put you at -5. So I was like, nah, this ain't bad at all. I can handle this.
Well, and that's the thing too is, I got family all over and I have a lot of family down in Florida. It's the second hub of my company for Dan Tortora Broadcast Media. And so I'm down in Florida a lot and my family's been telling me like, I'm like, how y'all doing? Man, it's so cold. We got some flowers that are not going to make it. And I feel bad about that, but they're like, man, it's cold. Man, it's cold. And every time they say that, I look outside at the snow that has not melted in 2 weeks and I go, I don't want to hear it. You know what I mean? Like I feel for you, but it's like somebody saying I put my finger on the stove and I touched it and it was hot versus like I'm sitting in an inflamed, like a giant it's like the difference between touching your finger on the stove and like sitting in hell for an hour. It's
Mm-hmm.
just a different thing. So, I
Mm-hmm.
can feel for people down south, but I just want to let y'all know what you deal with for 2 weeks or 3 days, we deal with for 6 months.
Oh, I'm well aware. I grew up in it, so I'm very well aware.
And share with everybody where your neck of the woods was when you were growing up.
I grew up in central Pennsylvania. I was born right outside of Philadelphia. My dad was a high school coach, and then he moved to central Pennsylvania, to Bellefonte, Pennsylvania, which is about 20 minutes north of State College, where Penn State is. And that's where I grew up, moved there when I was 5. So I lived in Pennsylvania from there until I graduated college, which was Bloomsburg University in 1998. And then I started moving out. So I've been from one part of the country to the other and then back again. So been a little bit everywhere, but my roots are still in Bellefonte, Pennsylvania. My mom still lives there. So it's always good to go home and feel central PA.
Yeah, and it's funny that you talk about that area and you talk about Bloomsburg because I was around that area and spent some time recently over the last few years. So when you're talking about this, I've gotten to know Pennsylvania pretty well. I went to Marywood University in Northeast PA, but I've been all through Pennsylvania.
Mhm.
So what you might be saying to someone that's foreign right now, I'm picking up what you're putting down, coach. And I'm like, yeah, I know that area. I know Bloomsburg. So how would you describe that area? How would you describe your experience of Central PA?
Oh, I love the falls because you get all the foliage and the change of the season there happens. That's my favorite time of the year. Growing up, PA was fall football season, and I enjoyed, just where I lived is in Happy Valley. So you got that valley that sits in there, and it's Penn State football, and you grew up with football around you. And then when I went to Bloom, how that university is situated on top of the hill, you overlook the Susquehanna Valley, and it was it's what you think about when you think of college football. You think of the atmosphere, you think of the fall, you think of the change of the seasons, you think the leaves
Yeah.
and just the smell in the air and things like that. And I loved growing up in PA. I loved living in the woods. I was a country boy, a little bit of redneck, and but hunt and fish. And yeah, I got bucks on my wall and shot a few doe in my day too. So yeah, they weren't, they were in line too in that scope. Uh, but I grew up as a country kid. So moving around and stuff, it was nothing for me to be in the place I've been. So it was fun. It was growing being a kid from Pennsylvania and experiencing the things that I had growing up with being where everybody knew everybody in the small town, and that I think that helped make me who I am and helped me put me into kind of helped me grow up to where I am today. Because I mean, you always had to be on your P and Qs. You always had to be sharp because, like you said, you turn the corner and there's the sheriff of the town, and he played for my dad, so everybody knew me. I couldn't get away from anybody.
Yeah.
So it forced me to be better than everybody else because of how I grew up, who my dad was, who my mom was, and because she was a teacher too, so she taught half my buddies in school, and it's that traditional small town feel, and I enjoyed that. I liked it. That's part of me.
Well, and like you said, I mean, you living in that world, right? And like with your dad being a coach and your mom being a teacher, you can't really go anywhere without somebody knowing who you are, and I thought about
No,
that too. Like I didn't get in trouble as a kid, but my dad, it was like if I got in trouble, like he was gonna know. He was gonna know. I was gonna, it was gonna be on me, and I knew like, and I was never a kid that wanted to get into any type of trouble, but my dad, he knew so many people. My dad works in the law enforcement world, and so I knew that. I have uncles and a godfather that are out there as police officers, and then my mom, she knows everybody. My grandmother, they called her the mayor because she talked to everybody. Like if we left after church and we went to get some breakfast and we sat in the back, when we came through that restaurant from the back to the front, it would take her a half an hour to get through all the people because she's shaking hands and remembering all this stuff about everybody. So I fully understand and can go with you down that road of, never
Mhm.
wanted to be a bad kid, but if you stepped off the line for a second, you knew that somebody knew your parents.
Let me ask you a question. Did you ever get arrested by your dad?
No.
All right, I got thrown out of school by mine.
Okay. Tell
He
that
was the
story.
assistant principal, and
Yeah.
he threw me out of school. So I got suspended in school, and then when I got home, it was not very good.
Well, that's the thing is like because you get thrown out by that person who just so happens to be the person you're going to see at home. Can you tell me
Oh.
why you got thrown out of school?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's been more than 7 years. I can do that.
Yeah, let me know.
You know, a kid. I was walking down the highway, walking down the hallway,
Yeah.
and the head baseball coach's son knocked my books out from under my arms. I turned around and knocked them out, and picked up my books and walked back to class. And 5 minutes later, I got a call down to the principal's office, and I was kicked out of school. And when I got home, yeah, it wasn't a very good scene when I got home.
Yeah, I can imagine that. But you didn't instigate, so you responded.
No, but yeah, that's true. I finished it. But I didn't instigate, but I finished it. So that was the problem.
Did you learn at a young age from that situation to tell your players that the officials typically never see the first offense, they always see the reaction?
That would be correct. That's an everyday story. Yes.
Yeah. Because I was going to say, I mean, it seems like a normal thing where you go back and you look at it. And, I mean, you and I, there's a guy that was on Syracuse a few years back, and we were talking about him last night. A guy that you and I both like, and I'll leave him unnamed here. But there was a game where, and I know his character, and I've been around his family and for years, and he swung at somebody toward the end of the game. And people are like, well, who is it? And then, of course, there's people that don't know Syracuse football, never watch Syracuse football, but because it's on the internet, now they got a reaction to this kid. And there's, people say whatever they say because they don't know the story. At halftime of that game, his father texted me and he goes, hey, he got in touch with me. Like, he got in touch with him in the middle of the game. His son did. And he was like, Dad, he spit in my face. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why he swung.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we've seen that on the football field before that well we don't see it but you hear about it. Bill Romanowski's one that stands out, but like
Yeah.
is there ever a time where you go to a player and you say, okay, yes, I don't want you to retaliate, I want you to keep your composure, but I don't know, coach, I've been spit on when I was a kid in elementary school, and I'll never forget that day, and nobody on the bus did anything. So I mean, is that something where you're like, okay, I want you to pull back, but I also understand that that's kind of, I don't know. I think
Oh
that world
yeah,
is different.
I had a kid. When I was at Baylor, this young man, he's still playing in the NFL right now. We're playing at we're playing at another school, and he got spit on in the game, and he went off. I thought they're gonna throw him out. Thank God they didn't. And I got him on the bench. I told him, I said, "You got to calm down." And he's like, "Coach, you don't understand. He spit on me." I said, "I do understand. You can't do anything." He goes, "Coach, we were in the street. He'd be dead." I'm like, "We're not in the street. We're on the football field. Can't kill him." So the only thing you can do is just keep knocking the crap out of him. So that's your job. That's what you got to do. Every time you get a shot, you take a shot. All right, but you got to do it between the whistles because they're going to take your ass and throw you home, and then you're done. So, but yeah, I get those things, and there's dirty things that happen in games, and there's things that sometimes are perceived dirty that really aren't. They're just accidents that happen,
Yeah.
and kids react certain ways, and you got to be able to manage that. And that's the really the hardest part is that how to manage kids from different walks of life that have been raised different ways, or maybe not have been raised really at all. And you got to help them understand what their talent is, what their potential is, and get them to where they want to go. Some don't come from a father that has no home with them, just his mom,
Yeah.
and so now you put an authoritarian man in his life, and they don't handle that very well because they've never been talked to about like that by a man, and it doesn't go over well. So you got to be able to manage each kid. You got to be able to understand what drives them. You got to understand what motivates them. You got to understand how they learn. You're always going to have guys. You have guys that are high learners, and it's easy. They can put it down, they get it. And then you got ones you got to walk through, write down, rewrite everything for them so that they can figure it out, so they understand how to play, because it just doesn't compute with them, and they have a tough time processing it.
Well, and you bring up an interesting point, and I remember this. There was a team, and it's funny because you worked with the San Antonio Brahmas, and obviously what was the XFL and USFL, which bonded to become the UFL now. And when I was working with the first iteration of the UFL, I worked with the Florida Tuskers, and I interviewed two guys back to back. They're on the same team. One guy went to an Ivy League school, and one kid never really had the education, and they're both fantastic players, wonderful people. But when you had them, like when you had them on the show, they sounded totally different. Now, to
Mhm.
me, like that's my guy and that's my guy. But then when you go back and you listen to it, it's like people come from different walks of life.
Yep.
Some people have resources, some people have nothing. And I think it's an interesting point that you brought up because people are judged based on how they speak, how much they know, how they dress, their posture, all of these things, how much money they have. But in actuality, it's like this kid was born into a family where maybe there was structure. This kid was born into a family where there wasn't. This was a neighborhood where maybe this kid saw something that stayed with him forever. This kid's never seen anything. He
Mhm.
thinks life is sunshine and rainbows. So when you have, and I love that you brought up this point because I'm sitting here to myself saying 22 years on the show and I've never really dug deep into this, and now I want to. How do you navigate a room full of guys where they're all talented, but it's all different? He comes from two parents, he comes from one parent, he comes from a terrible neighborhood, he comes from a good neighborhood, he comes from a community that's supportive. This kid's been told his whole life he was never going to make it. Like, how do you bring all of that together and teach a room full of people that maybe don't understand each other because they came from different walks?
Well, the first thing is you always want to bring guys in the room that have the same common goals. And usually that goal is to play at a high level and get where they want to go, which is usually the NFL. That's always the common connector between guys. And then it's like, all right, you set a standard. Here's the standard. Here's where we all got to be on a daily, on a weekly, on a monthly, and a yearly basis. This is how we got to perform. This is how we got to act. And then you set the guidelines, and you don't waver from those guidelines. They got to fit into those guidelines. Now, with that being said, that is just the structure of
Yeah.
your room. Now, each guy's going to learn differently, so you got to learn how, you got to figure out how each guy processes so that you can give them the information. Like you're going to give all the information. Okay, all right, Johnny and Jimmy, you guys stay with me afterwards because we got to break this down a little bit more. Or we're going to put it all in. And so you don't call guys out because everybody doesn't want to know what each guy is capable of doing. They figure it out pretty quick. You don't want to call them out. You're going to walk through this.
Yeah.
All right. So you can make it structured so that each guy understands how within the walkthrough, you make the same calls, but now they're going off of all right, a verbal cadence instead of seeing things written on the board or watching video. So they're more visual in regards to they got to line up and do things. You know, in regards to treating kids, like I try to make sure that I treat everybody the same until you give me a reason not to.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to act like a fool, all right, I'll treat you how fools do. I'll react to how you act. You know, if you're going to be a fool, I'll treat you like one. If you're going to be respectful and handle things in the correct manner, I'll treat you that way. You know, and usually what happens is you get those guys who want to act like a fool. Then what happens is they start understanding what consequences are, and then you get them to fall in and understand what the standard is.
Well, yeah, and like you said, I mean, there has to be consequences. I feel like we live in a world today where people think about what they want to say and what they want to do, or maybe they don't even think about it, and they do it, and then they don't think about the consequence. Do you think the
Yeah,
game of football helps them to feel the consequences of life? Do you feel like that can still be a teachable thing to say, hey, on this football field and in this classroom, we're going to show you that life has consequences so that you're ready when you go out there?
hard because like the standard's the standard. Okay, so if you don't meet the standard, you like you said, you have to have consequences. But the problem you get now is if you get these kids who don't that they don't care, they want to just do what they do, and they don't like it, they leave. You know, and that's where this whole portal thing, and I know where you're driving at with this, and that's where the portal really comes into play. Excuse me, is that you have these kids that you say, here's your standard, you don't meet the standard, you know what the consequences are as well. I don't like what the consequences are, coach. I'm going to leave. Okay. And now you got to manage that. Like I refuse to pamper my guys. I won't do it. I don't do it. And because you're cheating men of an opportunity to grow. Because if they think that as soon as things get tough, they just go someplace else, we're cheating up. Our profession is called to help raise young men. It's always been that way. And that's why I got into this because I watched how my father raised young men, and when he passed away, and I watched it be almost 2 hours from the back of the line to the front of the line to get through the pay respects and the stories I heard of how he affected their lives. Whether it's hey, he helped me as a teacher. Hey, I wasn't a very good football player, but he found ways to help me play so I could be a part of the team. Or hey, I was this guy and he helped me get to where I wanted to go. That's what I want to do. That's what I saw my calling as. So I still believe there's that. I want to still believe there's that opportunity to do that because as soon as I don't think you can do that anymore, then I'm getting out because it's not. This is not. It's not what this sport was intended for. It was not what college sports was intended for. It's getting more and more away from that aspect of raising young men into grown men. So we're getting puppies and we need to raise them into dogs. And we need to take the values that most of them have and get them to develop that. So when they leave here, they are successful businessmen, fathers, husbands, so that they can lead a life that is a life of success, you know, and provide. And the problem you have is with all these kids now that as soon as they feel adversity, they want to go away. They don't want to fight it. They don't want to fight adversity. They want to run from it and go find something that's easier. And when you have really talented kids that know that they can do that, I I'm not going to treat them differently because I know if I do, then when they leave me and they stay, I have not done my job in help raising them. I've fostered that that atmosphere, that culture of just getting by and helping them just to be easy with them. Life's hard. Life is hard, man. You can't let these kids just go and think I can just leave and move on because life's too hard. Because once they leave, because the percentage of guys that are going to play and make good money in the NFL is less than 1%. And now you get those guys when they leave and they go get a real job and it gets hard and they quit and they can't get to another job or one marriage gets hard and they quit the marriage or it gets hard raising kids and they don't want to do anything about it. They don't discipline them. We're fostering society where we are in a society of being soft with our kids and not allowing them to grow and be young men and helping them do that by having structure and having consequences. So you put me on my soapbox for a minute. So, you know, I mean, that's the problem I have with it right now. I love my job. I wake up every day and I love my job. I love the opportunity to coach young men and help them get to be better men. I
Yep.
love the opportunity of teaching them football and as well as teaching them football, teaching them life. I tell my guys as soon as I meet them, as soon as we meet for the first time, I'm going to tell them, say, if all I do is teach you about football while you're here, I'm cheating you of the opportunity to help raise you as men. He said, I want you to leave here knowing that you got more out of this experience than just football. It can't all be about football. Yes, that pays my bills. Yes, that puts dinner on the table for me and my kids. And it allows me to live a life where I don't have to go without. But at the end of the day, my calling is to help them be better men.
Well, and you let into so many things, and I respect it, and I appreciate it, and you actually went where I was going. That if the portal allows, and there, listen, there are opportunities where a coach lies to a player, they should be able to leave, right? Something happens at home, somebody gets sick. And I remember this, and I go back to this, and I keep thinking about it. I probably always will, but the NCAA granted a waiver to a guy who transferred schools before the portal because it looked like he didn't want to compete for his job. So he's at one school, and it's like, well, I want to leave. So I want a waiver to play right away. Why? Because I just want to play right away. And they gave it to him. Then there was a kid that came to Syracuse, and it was like, bad situation. He was going through stuff. I think he wanted to be closer to his mom, and they wouldn't let him play. So here's this kid.
I remember I was here for that. I
Yeah.
know exactly what you're talking about.
So I'm thinking about that kid who's like maybe, going through stuff mentally. It's hard, it's tough, and you want to have this time with your family and you want to do the thing you love, and the NCAA says no. Then you got a quarterback that's like, oh, well, I don't want to compete with that guy, so I'm going to run away. And they're like, yeah, immediate waiver. You went into what I was going to go into. If a kid can jump in the portal and run, and he can do that with no consequence, like, because there are people that say, okay, first time you do it, you could play right away. After that, we go back to the old rules. You got to sit out a year. And then guys are going to stop doing it because now they're going to be in college for like 8 years trying to get 4 years of eligibility. So there has to be some parameters to it because, like you said, if you can run every time, you got a guy going to 4 places in 4 years, 5 places in 4 years, 7 places in 5 years, whatever it may be. And now they're going to leave their family. They're going to leave those kids. They're going to leave that wife. They're going to leave that job because they're going to think when adversity strikes, I don't have to answer it. I can just run. And if I've learned anything about God, when he gives you a test and you don't take it and you run from that door and you're like, thank God, and you're smirking, I got away from that door, and you're running in the dark, and all of a sudden you open your eyes and the same door's there. And if you fail that test, the same door's there. And if you don't take it, the same door's there. And I could sit back and go, I think he gave me the same test for like 8 years. He was like, you need to figure this out. And until you figure it out, we're going to keep doing this. It's going to feel like it's some weird Groundhog Day. So, I mean, I appreciate what you had to say because it was along the same thing I'm thinking. You go from being in your parents' house and not being in the real world to eventually you're in the real world. And to me, college was always meant to be that bridge of we give you a taste of the real world. You're away from home a lot of the time, even if it's down the street or wherever it may be. So you're in the real world. You have some independence, but you're still connected to something that's not asking you to do it all by yourself. So to me, college was always that bridge of let's take you from you don't have to worry about anything to it's all on you, and let's help you get to that point. If we take that middle point away, how are the puppies ever going to learn not to pee on the carpet?
Absolutely. Great analogy. I like that. Puppies on carpet. Absolutely. Because they're puppies. They hate that. I tell my guys that all the time. I say, you're just a bunch of puppies. And they're like, no, we're dogs. I said, no, you guys haven't been spanked enough to be dogs. So I'll raise you up.
Well, and the thing is like, and I would think if because I know you've coached linebackers at D-line and whatnot, and you've had a lot of work on that defensive side of the ball. If I'm playing for you and you called me a puppy, I'm going to want to hit the sled like crazy. I'm going to want to knock the guy out that's on the other side of me. So I would hope that there's been times where you call them puppies and they're like, all right, coach, I'm going to show you what's up. And I hope
Oh,
that they respond.
yeah, I got to go. Chase Simmons was like that. That when I had him, so he was that way. I'd call him a puppy, and we'd get on him, and he'd get mad, and I'd go to demonstrate a drill. And he goes, "Coach, let me demonstrate on you." Like, nope, I know what you're gonna do. Nope, no, someone else is gonna do this one. Nah, you're too mad right now. We're not doing that. Nope. I just thought, no, you'll screw it up. I'll get someone else. And then he'd get all mad. But so yeah.
So, I want to stick with Chase for a second because my experience with Chase is so I work with Mother's Cupboard and they partner with the show and I have my own sandwich there. So I'm leaving one day and this big SUV pulls up and Chase Simmons is driving and we start talking and I talk about like, hey, this is what I stand for, this is what I'm about. He talks to me and we're like, okay, like we're on the same line here, so we connected even deeper than kind of just knowing of each other. And I know he was asked to be on the D line. He was asked to be a tight end. He was swerving back and forth here with what people were asking him to do. How would you describe Chase Simmons? Because I don't think he ever really got his flowers. So I'm happy you brought him up because I'd like to. I go back to that day in the parking lot thinking to myself, this guy's got a good head on his shoulders.
Chase does. He is a pit bull. He was my dog that if there's one guy I said that would be a dog to go chase a car, knowing that he can't catch it, that's him. He would go chase that car down the road. Extremely physical, loved football, was a very talented wrestler in high school as well. But more important than all that, he is a true man of God. He is very strong in his faith, and that has grown drastically since he first got here. I watched that transformation I had with him for the 4 years I was here with him, and he's going to be a really good man. I saw that he just went to Kennesaw State. I'm happy for him that he's found a place that he can call home and get to finish up his career.
Yeah.
And hopefully, I pray that it works for him and finishes on a positive note. And that doesn't mean go to the NFL. That he just finishes with a good experience and gets to finish the game the way he wants to play the game.
Yeah.
And then that whether he gets a chance or not, but he can then move on with the rest of his life and be, be a good man, be a good father, be a good husband, do all those things.
So my question to you is he a D lineman or is he a tight end?
Always D line.
I knew the answer. I just wanted
he's
you to
too
say
mean. He's too mean, too nasty, he's twitchy. He's my kind of guy. So he tries to hurt people. I like that.
You spent 4 years at Syracuse. And you were there under the leadership of Dino Babers. So I got to know Dino over the years. I will never forget the day that he started calling me DT. And my buddy got in touch with me. He was like, man, I love that coach calls you that. But Dino and I, we always, we had a good relationship and it only got better. And if he's listening or watching somewhere, Dino, I love you and I appreciate you because you always treated me well. I would love to get your thoughts of 4 years working with Dino Babers because I don't like that this media world that I'm a part of speaks for people with that never really get to know that person hardly at all. And you got to be with him every day in the trenches. So what was it like working with Dino?
I really enjoyed because Dino and I were friends before I got here. Him and I worked together at Baylor, and when he called me to take the job, I just got let go at Arizona, so I was all intent because it wasn't until March. And this is the kind of guy he is. He he calls me at 6 a.m. in the morning Arizona time, and he goes, "What are you doing?" I said, Dino, I'm in bed. I'm sleeping. I got to take my kids to school in an hour. I'm gonna get up in 30 minutes to take them to school. What could you possibly want at 6 a.m. in the morning in the middle of March? And he's like, hey, you coached linebackers before? I'm like, yes. Why? You want to coach my linebackers? Sure. All right. I'm going to start. We'll be up here on Friday. Okay. That's how I got there. All right. But now there's a few other words I had that I won't repeat on that when he called me, when I was asking, what the blank are you calling me for at 6 a.m.? And yeah, so that's how I ended up here. But working for him, Dino's a really, really good man. And him and I had some deep conversations while I was there. I think some things got away from us while we were there, and hence the reason we didn't finish the way he would want to finish as a head coach. But his attention to detail and what we did and how he wanted things run. It was a different thought than what I had been with before. And I respected that because he stuck to it. He said, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to be. And I was like, okay, as long as we're all still towing the same line every day, I'm good with that, you know? And I enjoyed my time because it was it was a good experience I would like to think it was a good experience with me being on his staff, and he would say that, and I could say it was a good experience for me working with him on the staff.
Well, and like you said, he came in and he was different than some other people that you worked for. What was it about his leadership style, or maybe the pillars, foundation of his leadership, that you felt like was different in a good way, that stayed
Well,
consistent?
for him, it was all about Ohana. It was about the family, and he would preach family, and with that being said, he made sure that every kid felt like they were part of the family, and some kids would buy into it and some kids would not because, as you know, kids are kids. But I thought, that his process of getting everybody together was well founded. And I thought that we just, like I said, there's some things that we had that went on that, that prevented us from doing better than we did. I thought we were talented enough. We just couldn't figure out how to get it done on a consistent basis.
And going through that experience in that time, I want to tell you a story about Dino that I think it happened before you got there. So in 2018, obviously Syracuse made it to the Camping World Bowl and they won it. Eric Dungy, I had the opportunity. I actually have him the picture of him crying after from my question when I said, this is not like this season. This is 4 years of people telling you can't, going through injury, all the adversity, and winning this final game for you, and doing something Syracuse hadn't done in like 20 or 21 years, which is get to 10 wins. So I want to share a Dino story. It was a post-game press conference, and he said, he's like, Eric Dungy, like, I know he runs, and I'm paraphrasing, but he said, I know he runs, but he's not going to do a lot of that anymore. Like, we're going to pull him in. He's not going to be like that, and then the next season he's in a press conference and he goes, you got to let Eric be Eric, man. And I remember just thinking that, going like, and you talk about dogs, Dungy's a dog.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
he's such a dog that I was like, Dino's going to find out that when you tell him not to hurdle someone, he's going to hurdle 3 people. So that's just how he was. But you talk about Ohana. Why did you believe that Dino meant it? Because people talk about family all the time, and sometimes it's smoke and mirrors and it's for the media, and other times like they mean it. Why do you feel like he actually meant Ohana?
Because it's just not something that was brought up in casual conversation. It was brought up every day, and I know that's how Dino looked at it from his time that he spent in Hawaii and the background he has with his wife and his kids, and and how he raised his daughters, and I got to see that firsthand being with him at Baylor. His daughters used to babysit my kids when we were at Baylor together. So his devotion to family was as strong as I saw it with him off the field. He did everything he could to keep it on the field with that team and that players.
Well, I appreciate that trip down memory lane for a second here with Coach Achuff about his time at Syracuse. You also got to spend time at my alma mater of Christian Brothers Academy, working with Casey Brown and Brian Bruno. And like I told you off the air yesterday, Brian, if you're watching and listening, send this man a care package from Brian's Landing. He said he got a drink or two. I don't know where the food's at, but you need to make sure this man gets some food, or else when I do my monthly thing where I'm with Chef cooking in the kitchen, I'm just going to send the care package myself out to Alabama. But Brian Bruno, Bruce Williams, Kyle Robinson, so on and so forth. What was the experience like at CBA? Because I know that not only did you get to work with those people, but you also got to train your son, which is something that your father got to do with you.
Well, first, Brian gave me more than just a little bit of beer here and there.
Okay.
He did a little more than that. So, Brian, no, I know you did. You took care of me, brother. I appreciate you. Okay. You did a lot.
I gotta razz him a little bit every here and now because I know he's
no, but I'm gonna have to.
He's a good person.
That's the problem. He's gonna give me crap about it. I don't need it. So I get enough crap. I don't need any more.
I hear you.
but my experience there was, I mean, I was in a tough spot because when I came back, when we got let go at Syracuse, I couldn't get a job. So I went to the UFL, which was really rewarding. But when I came back, it's like, I got nothing to do. And, I went over to Casey and I just asked, hey, man, I'll volunteer, help out, do whatever. And he was like, absolutely. I said, okay. He goes, I want you to coach D line. I was like, I'll coach anywhere. He goes, no, I want you to coach defensive line. I was like, okay, whatever you want me to do.
Yeah.
So, and I knew my son was coming up, and that first year, I knew they were really talented. I knew they had some good guys that could really play. Marquand Sadler, and you had Nolan, and then you had um, um, our big cat in the middle, and then you had my son and a few other pieces, and we we were really good. But my experience working was because Casey allowed me to be me. He didn't put restraints on me. He said, be you, and if I need to calm you down, I'll let you know. And every now and then he said, hey, coach, I need you to calm down. I was like, okay, all right, you dial it down just a notch for me. I was like, yes, sir. And but I was able to help them. I really look as much as someone will say I helped them, they helped me. They helped keep my sanity because I love football. I grew up with it. It's all I've ever really done since the day I was born, and they allowed me to be me and be able to continue to coach. And the relationships that I had with Kyle and with Bruce and with Randall, the O line coach, Jason Randall,
Yeah.
and with Casey and Gid and Little Gid and all those guys and being on that staff with them. I mean, it was really, really a highlight in my coaching career being a part of that staff. Take away the state championship, which was awesome because I never had one. I never got one. I never got to compete with one. And to be a part of that and then having that opportunity to do it with my son was, it was awesome. I mean, it was such a strong experience for me because sorry, they did more for me than probably what I did for them, you know. And that's the kind of people they are. That's the kind of coaches they are. That's the kind of men they are. They care so much about not only themselves and then them working together, but they put so much into those kids
Yeah.
to help them be to be better kids, to start them in that process of growing to be men. So when they leave there, they're better than when they got them when they were freshmen or sophomores. So uh, you talk about places that do it right and they understand how to treat people. They're in a better place that I know of. I've never been a part of. I haven't seen a better high school staff than what I saw when I was there with them. Not just in knowledge, but also in how they conduct themselves around those kids.
Well, and I appreciate that. And the getting choked up talking about it. I've been there. Casey's been there. It's like there's something else to it. I don't. I mean, there was a day they lost a sectional championship within the last few years, and I wanted to talk to Casey, and you think some coaches just kind of walk out, right? And I was going to text him, and I look up, and I was shooting my video on the field, and I see him walking out of the tunnel, and I'm thinking, oh, okay, I'm going to go up and I'm going to say something to Casey, and whatever reason he's out here, like let me grab a couple minutes with him, and he beelined right for me. He said, I came out here to talk to you. He said, that's what I came out here for. Came out here to talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, why the hell would you be thinking about me right now?
Yeah.
And he came out, and I remember I was having a really rough go at some things in life at the time. And I looked, he goes, how you doing? And I get choked up thinking about this. He said, how are you? And I looked at him, he goes, you're not okay. And he grabbed me and he just pulled me in, and my head was on his chest, and he said, I love you. And I don't think people fully understand. They look at CBA as the big bad wolf, and they talk about, recruiting because it's a private school and this and that. I don't think they know the caliber of human beings that are coaching And I'm happy that you shed some light on that today.
No, it's. I mean, it's why. That's what made that experience that so much more enjoyable. Forget. I mean, not to mention the fact that I got, like you said, I got to coach my son, and no, that was a joy myself watching him grow. So it was. That's been fun too. And you're right, the quality of men that they put on that staff to work together, and Eddie, I'm going to talk about you too, Eddie. And then you got all those guys that work from the JV level up that work their tails off and do a great job of being all bought in together and working together. And watching those kids go to the JV games, the varsity guys and the varsity coach, you go watch JV, and it's like we get fired up watching those kids play, and then we all work together on Friday nights, and then in the off season you see how everyone comes together and how the standard, and it'll never be deviated from because it's a brotherhood, and they believe in that and they preach it, and it's not something to just talk about, as they live it. And it's the importance of that. And everyone, people want to go there because they think guys get scholarships and all that stuff. And yeah, there's guys that get scholarships out of there and stuff like that. Maybe some more in other schools, but it's more than that. You go there because you want to become a better person. You want to go there because you want to get a better education. You want to go there because you're going to grow. When you leave there, you'll be a better young man than when you first got there, because the standard's the standard. We're going to be 1-0 in everything they do. They're going to be 1-0 in the classroom. They're going to be 1-0 in the weight room. They're going to be 1-0 on the field. And that will never change. And as long as they keep able to operate that way, you're going to keep having the success that they've had. And there may be years when the talent's not as high as it is, but guess what? Those kids will know what the standard is, and they will strive and they will claw. They'll do everything they can because they know what the standard is, because that is not just something that's talked about. It's a belief. It's a faith. And because that where CBA is, and because it is a Christian-based faith school, you can talk about those things and you can preach it and you can live it, and that's the part that makes that place so special.
Yeah, and I love and I appreciate the fact that you were there. When I heard you were on staff, I was like, why? I was like, he doesn't need this. And then you hear about the experience that you had, and it speaks to your character, and it speaks to, having a special moment with your son like you got to have with your dad, and pay that forward. I would venture to say that you could win a million championships, but that's never going to top the fact that you got to coach your own kid. So before I let you go, Coach, because I know we have just a couple minutes, you've been all over. You've coached in high school, college, pro, the San Antonio Brahmas, as I brought up. And I know you and I talked off the air about the Brahmas a little bit, but we can't get to every single piece. I'm going to have you back if you're willing to come on, because you have a very long career that I would like to believe is just getting started. But I do want to ask about the Brahmas, because I value what the UFL and the USFL and the XFL and the AFL and all these leagues and the CFL that have tried to create other opportunities for guys. So I want to hear your thoughts about the Brahmas.
It was, 26 years been coaching football, and my my first year there was easily in the top five. I mean, it's right up there with coaching my son in a state championship game, winning Big 12 championships, things of that nature. And it was because of what the purpose of that league is to get guys to go that want to go play in the NFL. And as long as I believe that is the mission of that league, they still got to turn a dollar. You got to make money to keep functioning these days. As long as they understand and they keep fighting for the fact that they're trying to get kids to the NFL, excuse me, not kids, they're men now, that league should have a lot of success. In my opinion, the NFL needs to get involved with it more, because now you got the NFL marketing machine, so that can get behind it, excuse me, and help push this thing to keep it and sustain it like they did with the UFL, which I thought was awesome, because you could allocate guys to that. And I think the NFL can be able to use the UFL to do that as well. They've had a better setup now where they can take guys, and if you're there too long, you can't come back, because they got to make room for new guys to come in. To be able to walk into a room every day, because even the guys I coached here in South Alabama and the guys I coached in high school, they would ask me, what's the difference between coaching like in the UFL and the NFL compared to like high school, and college. And I said, it's easy. Everybody wants to put the easy part and say it's recruiting. That's a part of it, but the bigger part is that those guys understand that as much of it is a game, it's their job, and they have to be prepared to do their job. So when they come into the room, they come into the meeting room, they got their notepads, they got their iPads, they're ready to go. Most of them have already watched tape, they already have ideas because they already know our defense, so they have knowledge. And with that knowledge, they have an idea of what we're going to try to do and then what they think we can do. So there's a lot of banter back and forth. Like, we're going to set the game plan, and then they're going to ask questions, intelligent questions about what we're trying to do. And that's growth. Yeah. And that's where I like our guys to get to that point where they're asking me questions, intelligent questions about what we're doing, because that shows growth and knowledge of what we're trying to teach. So when you're in that room with those professional guys, they go ahead and they're taking detailed notes. They're making their own cut-ups of stuff besides the things that I've already made for them. When we go out in the field, it's not like pulling teeth to get them to go. It's full boogie every day so that they're in a position to go ahead and win, to stay in the NFL or to get to the NFL when you're talking about the UFL. And that's what I enjoyed about it. And when you take a group of guys like that are from all over and you get them bought in to what you want to do, that's why we were so successful my first year. We had what? We had 39 sacks in 11 games. That's unheard of. And we were number one in the league in defense. We had led the league in tackles for loss. We led the league in points allowed. We were really, really good. And it started with those guys up front because the culture we created there was that of ownership and that of believing in the guy, not just behind us, but you got to believe in the guy to the right and the left of you so that you can get the job done consistently every single snap.
My last note here, got to ask you this, is, South Alabama, you just took the job recently, last month, on the D-line, and I'm going to bring us full circle. Obviously, weather had something to do with it, but I want to know why you're a Jaguar in South Alabama right now.
Well, it started out, I took a job as a defensive coordinator at Texas A&M Kingsville, and I was driving to Texas, and I had stopped in Lafayette, Louisiana, to stay with a couple of my buddies. And I got a call because I knew some people over here, and I was, at one point trying to see if I could get in on the job over here, and I hadn't heard anything. So the defensive coordinator called me, Todd Orlando, and he's like, "Hey, I'd like to talk with you." And I was like, "Okay." So the short of it was we hung up, and then I just texted him and said, "Hey, I can be there tomorrow." He says, "What time?" I said, 9 a.m. I said, "Okay." So I got in my car, drove 3 hours in the opposite direction I was going, got there, interviewed at 9 a.m., got the job by 1, and I've been here ever since. So that was on January 6th. So I've been there just over a month.
Well, I appreciate it. I look forward to this new chapter. And I'm going to say to you on the air, like I said to you off the air, I want some Brahma gear if you got any in the house.
Oh, man, they gave us so much stuff. I got something you can put on your wall, I promise you.
So, Chris Achuff, and I'm going to say this. I'm going to speak it into existence because it was coming off my tongue just now. Head coach at some point. I see it. Coach Achuff, appreciate you, Coach. Appreciate our conversation on and off the air, and I look forward to this being one of many.
Hey, I appreciate you. I appreciate you having me on, man.
Of course. And thank you for everything. And above everything else, thanks for talking about faith, because that is the most important thing. And give my best to your kids and stay safe out there. Enjoy the weather. And I'll talk with you soon.
Yes, sir. Take care.
Take care.